is Debbie Kelly. I am a field specialist in horticulture with University of Missouri Extension. And we are so excited for today simply because one, finally the sun is shining in my area, the state, but most importantly, because we are actually starting our weekly garden hour for the entire growing season, probably through close to mid-October to the end of October. And so we'll be here every week at noon to answer your gardening and lawn and natural and insects and all those different kinds of questions that we're able to answer for you. So what I'd like to do is kind of go over a little bit and do an introduction of all of us and who we are. We have a core team of us across the state that are field specialists in horticulture that are here to answer your questions for you. And so we've got Donna Oftenberg is down in the southeastern part of the state. Justin Kay isn't able to join us today. He's in the northeastern part, and he answers a lot of our cover crop and soils questions. Katie Kamler is our dedicated email person, and she's in St. Genevieve County, and she does a lot for us as well and does answer some questions. Kelly McGowan is part of the core team. She's out of Springfield. Kathy Meacham couldn't be here. She's part of the core team. She's up in Carroll County. Tamara Rial, our guru when it comes to insects, as well as being our lovely chat person. No one does it as good as she does. Jennifer Shooter is up in Kirksville, and she's part of the core team as well. And so we're just really happy to be here every single week to answer your questions for you. We also have Jared, who is behind the scenes, who does all the fabulous stuff with technology. And we always want to acknowledge him as well. We couldn't be able to do this without him. And so we're very appreciative. And then the other person who I always want to acknowledge is Dr. Pat Ganan. He is with us every single week to give us an update about weather. We're excited that he's always willing to be with us, and he's going to tell us all about what's going to happen this week, and probably need to keep our ears open from what I've been hearing. And I'm sure he's going to be telling us some interesting information that we need to think about. But we're here. We're happy to answer your questions. You'll notice on the screen that there are quite a few of us that are located across the state. There are some open positions, but don't fret. We hope to have those positions refilled at some point as soon as campus tells us we can start hiring new people again. But if you're in a county and there's no one located in that county, just email one of the others of us, and we're more than happy to answer your questions for you. This is what we do, and we all love our jobs. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Pat, and he's going to provide us some great information when it comes to the weather.
Sounds good. Thank you, Debbie, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, March is behind us, so we're into the first week of April, but I always like to look back to what we went through. And on the left are the temperatures. You know, these past 3 months, it's been very similar in regard to these weather patterns we've been having, up and down. I call it roller coaster weather, whiplash weather. We've had periods of warmth followed by periods of cold weather, and when you put them all together, they actually turn out to look near normal, which obviously wasn't the case with the up and down pattern. But nonetheless, on the left shows departure from normal temperatures for the month of March. Generally, the averaging, especially across the eastern half of the state, above average, near to slightly below average across parts of western, northwestern Missouri. But when you look at the state as a whole, it'll go down in the record books as March being an above average month, generally about 1.8 degrees above average. These are preliminary numbers that just were released earlier this week. On the right, precipitation, it was a wet month. We did get some notable precip. You know, February was fairly wet, as well as March. These are some totals across the state, a little bit drier in the northwest corner, but that is the exception to the rule. Generally 4 to 5 inches were pretty typical. That's wet for the month of March. And so any concern that we had with winter dryness, I think, is pretty much evaporated. That only exception would be the northwest corner of the state. We're looking really good as we go into spring when it comes to water supplies, both above and below the ground. We're in good shape, as actually might be a little bit too wet for that matter, but nonetheless, March was a wet month. When we look over the past couple weeks, this is radar estimates since about March 24th through this morning. Again, some significant systems have impacted our state over the past couple of weeks. These yellows are indicative of more than 2 inches of precipitation, even some wetter conditions in east central Missouri, 3 to 4 inches, some big totals over the past couple of weeks and some very wet conditions. That only exception being the far northwest corner where that has been the driest area over the past couple of weeks. If you want to look at actual reports, I'd highly recommend, if you haven't already, we do have a citizen science project that all 50 states participate. Missouri joined it in 2006. It's called COCORAS. COCORAS is an acronym for the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. And so we have about over 300 regular observers here in our state of Missouri that report on a daily basis. It's a great way to measure and document precipitation, which has all sorts of application. The National Weather Service uses this information. If you're interested, go to the website. There's a button in the upper right-hand side of the screen that says Join COCORAS. We'd love to get more folks involved because obviously precipitation, especially during the growing season, can be highly localized and variable. It's really nice to document and get that type of information. And I am one of the state coordinators for Missouri. So when you sign up, I'll get the information and I'll send you some more information. There's some excellent tutorials and training webinars. It's just a great resource to participate and provide some very helpful information for all kinds of sectors. But you can see these are the totals just for the month of April from the COCORAS observers. You can see, pick the location near your state. Some of the green dots indicate the heaviest precip in parts of west central, over in east central Missouri. Some in the southwestern corner of the state, they've had totals of more than 2/3 to over 1 inch in some of the heavier precipitation totals. So please feel free to join the website and become a COCORAS observer if you're interested. The soil temperatures, they've been warming up a little bit over the past couple of days with the warmer conditions we saw yesterday. On the left, these are the average weekly 2-inch bare soil temperatures using Missouri Mesonet data. You can get the latest soil temperature information by going to this website, mesonet.missouri.edu. These are the average over the past week. They're generally running in the middle to upper 40s across the northern half of the state, a little bit milder as you go over southern Missouri with average weekly temperatures in the lower 50s and some mid 50s here in the Boot Heel. On the right, these are the soil temperatures from about 10 minutes ago, the 2-inch bare soil temperatures. They warmed up nicely where the sun is out. You know, we're in the month of April, so that sun is getting up high on the horizon. It can warm up those soils quite quickly as you go through the course of the day. It looks like perhaps it's still cloudy in southeast Missouri, but the soil temperatures have warmed up nicely where the sun has come out, generally running well into the 50s and 50s pretty much throughout the state. The current conditions here, air temperature, again, using Missouri Mesonet data from about 10 minutes ago, we're running quite seasonable today. That's going to change starting tomorrow and Friday with much cooler weather on the way. But right now we're looking pretty nice today. A little windy outside with those winds gusting to 20 to 30 miles per hour, but we've rebounded well into the 50s, even some lower 60s across parts of the state. For today, it does look like the clouds and the rain will be moving out across eastern, southeastern Missouri. It looks like it will be a windy day. I do want to note southwestern Missouri is under a red flag warning because of the high winds and the low humidities. It's not recommended. Do not have any prescribed fire burns today because they can get out of control quite quickly with these very windy conditions. So much of southwest Missouri is under a red flag warning for today. Temperatures will rebound into the upper 50s and mid 60s. Lower to mid 60s is generally the average high for the first week of April across Missouri. I want to pay attention to the next few days, though, in regard to these temperatures. The minimum temperatures for tomorrow morning will dip into the 30s. No freezing weather is anticipated, but generally that's pretty cold for this time of year in the upper 30s. The highs tomorrow, look here in the lower left, generally only in the middle 40s across northern Missouri to lower 50s. That's well below average. And then look on Friday. Minimum temperatures Friday morning could be approaching freezing. So frost is a possibility, especially across far northern Missouri on Friday morning. High temperatures on Friday it's gonna feel more like the first week of March than the first week of April. Highs generally only in the 40s across the state. Some very cool conditions as we go into the next couple days. What we really need to keep an eye out for is Saturday morning. There is a likelihood, I would not be surprised if the National Weather Service issues a freeze warning perhaps across parts of northern Missouri for Friday morning, but perhaps the entire state, likely on Saturday morning. Look at these low temperatures, generally in the mid to upper 20s across much of the state. As you go into the south of I-44, those temperatures still indicating low 30s, even some freezing conditions in southeastern Missouri. So a very cold morning on Saturday morning. By later in the day on Saturday, those highs are forecast to rebound quite well back into the mid to upper 50s, even some lower 60s in southwest Missouri. And then better conditions as we go into Sunday morning. Again, though, it's quite cold on Sunday morning with highs only with lows in the lower 30s. And look at the highs here in the lower right for Sunday afternoon, warming up and back to more seasonable, even above average conditions with upper 70s in far southwest Missouri by Sunday afternoon. That's a major pattern change. We're anticipating much warmer conditions as we go into the day on Sunday and through much of next week. But again, I think the highlight here is what they are anticipating on Saturday morning with freezing weather across the entire state of Missouri anticipated. Precipitation, not a lot over the next 5 days. There could be some showers, what they call instability showers tomorrow afternoon under that cold air. And on Thursday and Friday, perhaps some light shower activity, not amounting to too much. There could even be some snowflakes mixed in with that precipitation tomorrow night, especially across the northeastern quarter of the state. It's when we go into next week, that's where we see a significant, much more active spring-like weather pattern setting up. Here on the left, this is the forecast of Monday through Friday of next week, so that'll take us into the middle part of April. When I see any sort of configuration like this for a high likelihood of below normal temperatures across the western half of the US, above normal temperatures across the eastern half, it's this area in between that's going to be the battle zone for showers and thunderstorms. So and you can see on the right, those greens are indicative of above normal precipitation for much of next week, starting as we go into Monday, Tuesday, and through midweek. Even the potential for some severe weather. We are entering severe weather season, so something to keep an eye on with those warmer conditions and more chances of showers and thunderstorms as we go into next week. Debbie, that's pretty much a weather report. I'll hand it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And so, folks had said it was going to get pretty chilly the end of this week. And so you said it, and we need to pay attention to our plants, and we'll have someone talk about that here just shortly. I do want to apologize. Manoj is on. He is also part of our team as well. He's in the northwest part of the state, and he's a turf guy. So we have someone who can help answer some of those questions. And then, of course, Dr. Peng Tian is on, and he is with the Plant Diagnostic Lab, always has some great information to present to us. So, sometimes I have a tendency to forget who's on and who's not, but I want to make sure that I get everybody introduced. What I'd like to do is go ahead and turn this over to Jennifer. She's going to be the moderator for today, and we'll move forward with questions and some different topics that we know will probably be of interest to you. So Jennifer?
Thank you, Debbie. Well, flowers are starting to bloom across Missouri. And here in Kirksville, we have daffodils and crocus and even star magnolias in bloom right now. But there's even more as you go farther south. And we are about 2 to 3 weeks behind southern Missouri. And down there in southern Missouri, they're starting to see fruit trees starting to bloom. And with that comes the need for possibly protecting them or protecting other plants that you have in bloom. And Kelly McGowan is going to talk to us about protecting our plants from a freeze.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, so, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely ready to plant. I'm sick of winter. I'm sick of cold weather. But there are some things to do if you already have plants in the ground or tender plants that may need a little bit of protection. So probably one of the most common things that people do if a frost is protected is to cover them up with something. I've got a few examples here I'm going to share with you. In this photo right here, we see some kind of spun bound frost protection cloth. Now, this is kind of the consistency of like a dryer sheet kind of material, and it does provide several degrees of protection. Now, with any of these products that you apply over your plants, we typically will recommend that you not lay it directly on top of the plants, especially if it's going to rain along with the cold temperatures, because it can cause that plastic or cloth or whatever to freeze to the plants, which is not good as well. But if we're not expecting any precipitation, you can kind of lay it on top of the plant like we see here. And really the sky's the limit as to what you use to protect your plants. You can see something as simple as plastic cups, plastic jugs, just anything that you can use to protect your plants. Now, I will recommend that you not apply any of these coverings until about 4 p.m. Before nightfall sets in. And that is because that's going to allow some of the heat of the day to kind of get trapped in your coverings and hold that near the plant overnight. Now, you will want to take those coverings off first thing in the morning. It can really heat up quickly underneath there. So the next morning, certainly take those coverings off, and also to help any moisture to escape as well. But here's just a couple of other examples of things you can do with, clothing or old sheets or anything that you have laying around can be used to cover plants. Just again, make sure that you take them off the next day. And then I also have a diagram here that shows kind of the correct and incorrect way to secure these around your plant. You just kind of want to leave it draped around the plant rather than tying it up. And that's going to allow any heat that is trapped in the soil to be released and help to protect the plant. Now, I've got a little greenhouse similar to this. Now, I will warn you, it's not the highest quality greenhouse in the world, but it is a good place to store any plants that you might have already purchased or any tender plants that are in pots. They can be put in something like this overnight, and you can zip up the door, and it will also provide a few degrees of protection as well. But these are not wind hardy at all, so you'll have to make sure that they are, fastened to the ground in some way, or they will go flying off. But they are pretty handy to have around in cases such as this. Now, as far as fruit trees, Jennifer mentioned that down here in Southwest Missouri, we are experiencing some fruit trees starting to bloom. And unfortunately, there's not a lot that can be done with trees. Now, if it's a small tree, you could probably throw some kind of a covering on it. But typically, fruit trees are not small enough to where we can do that. And a lot of times we're just at the mercy of the weather. One thing that you can do is if your fruit trees are mulched, you can rake back some of that mulch from the base of the tree. And again, that's going to allow heat that might be trapped in the soil to kind of be released up throughout the canopy of the tree, and that can help a little bit. Commercial orchards will do this smudge pot burning, which is just kind of, having a little fire out in the middle of the orchard, and that smoke and heat can provide some protection as well. But for those of us that have fruit trees that are beginning to bloom, that's not really practical for us to do that. But do know that although some fruit trees may be in bloom, not all of the buds on the trees are going to be opened up yet. Some may be, some are not. Some are just going to be in that tight bud stage, which will help to protect them from frost as well. And Jennifer, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Donna is now going to talk to us about early spring planting tips and dates.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, everybody's thinking about the weather warming up and getting out in the garden and planting. And so I figured I'd just throw in some tips that might be able to help you on your way into planting during the gardening season. Get my slide going. Okay. So I get this question a lot. What can be planted? Well, really, at this point, just about everything can be planted except for those warm season crops. So we still have about 3 or 4 weeks before we really need to focus on the warm season crops. So right now, focus on like the lettuce, the broccoli, the carrots, the beets, anything that is traditionally cool season. That's where we want to be focusing right now. On cultivating, just make sure, we've got a lot of rain in most of the state. You want to avoid working that soil when it's wet. You can really do a lot of damage to the soil, and soil compaction can happen very easily. And definitely don't overtill. I know a lot of people like their tillers, and they like to run them, and they end up making 2 and 3 passes. Well, sometimes that's too much. And so just remember, too much tilling can really destroy the organic matter, can cause compaction, and many other things. And so it can really be disastrous. And now, if you haven't had a soil test, you might consider taking a soil test to your local extension office, and it takes about 2 weeks to get them back. So just remember that, and that will give you an idea of what's missing, what you need to be adding nutrient wise into your soil. And the other thing is, take your time and don't be in a rush. I know a lot of us this time of year, we want to get it done and done quickly because we're always trying to beat that weather. But you've got time. We're still, the very beginning of April. And so there's still plenty of time to be planting cool season crops and to starting seeds for the warm season crops. If you haven't already bought your seeds, do so now. There may be limited supply out there at certain retailers. I have visited a couple places, and it seems like they have plenty. But if you're looking for specific varieties, that's where you may run into troubles, especially when you're trying to look online or with some of the garden catalogs, because some of the varieties are already picked over. If you're looking into buying seedlings, make sure that you buy early. Once again, it's rumored that plants are going to be scarce. So, even if you just have a warm, sunny window to put some of those plants in, to wait for that prime time of getting in the garden when it dries out, you're probably wise to do that. As far as planting techniques, I know I love the little push planters. As you can see on the right, my daughter has the push planter. I love it because you get the exact spacing, you get the exact depth that you need, and the seedlings come up fairly well. Now, if you're doing broadcasting, just be aware that sometimes a light layer of straw on top of that seed bed will help hold in moisture and keep soil compaction from happening when we get rains. And so just keep that in mind, that once those seedlings come up, you may need to rake that back off to get good, adequate sunlight and growth out of the plants. Another technique that I really utilize is frost blankets and insect barriers. As Kelly was talking about earlier, those frost blankets can be utilized if our temperatures drop down. But I also utilize them if my plants have not been hardened enough between going from a greenhouse to a garden. I will actually put the frost blanket or the insect barrier over those plants for a couple of days to get them used to being outdoors in the full sunlight, and with the winds. And so utilize them that way also. They're good to have around for many reasons: frost or insects or just hardening off. A couple other tips I always have. I really like planting aids. I know I tend to do crooked rows, and my husband pitches a fit because he likes to be exact and straight. And so I've started implementing using strings with knots to gauge how far between plants, and also to follow along so I get a fairly straight line. Another thing that I've utilized is the notched board. That's all the way to the right top picture. And once again, you can notch it at different measurements. And so you could plant tomatoes at the big V, and then on another row, you might use all the V's for planting, green beans. So just keep that in mind. It's another easy tool to have for measurement and spacing and keeping a straight line. And then of course, for lettuce and things like that, we have a pegboard on the bottom. I've never used one, but I'm always intrigued by them, that you could just push it down in the soil, bring it back up, and you have little holes or divots already ready to be planting lettuce or spinach or any of the leafy greens into. Another thing that I do, since we get lots of rain in the spring, I've almost given up sowing lettuce in the garden, honestly, unless it's a raised bed or my lettuce boxes. And so all these are wooden boxes with screen wire on the bottom. There's plans out there on the internet for them, but you can also use plastic kitty litter pans or kiddie pools, or a number of different containers. Just make sure they have holes in the bottom. But what I like about these is, one, you're not trying to wait for the soil to dry. You can get a jump start and get a nice crop of lettuce right away. And the other thing, these boxes do really well on back porches. And as you can see, the far right is the end result. I'm harvesting all that lettuce right now. And so it makes a really good, what do we call, a salad box. The big thing that you have to keep in mind when doing these boxes is don't crowd, watch your spacing, because as you can see, we started out with lots of space in the middle picture. And in the third picture, we have no space whatsoever. So these are easily crowded. So just keep that in mind. And my final advice is mulch your garden. I don't like dirty produce. I like my lettuce leaves to be clean. I want to prevent the diseases on the tomatoes. So the best way to ensure that is to mulch. And anything you use, like the straw, hardwood bark mulch, things like that, will cover that soil and make gardening a lot easier, even by preventing weeds. So lots of different reasons for mulching. And then finally, I want to talk about the vegetable planting calendar that we have. It's on our website, and it's also being posted in the chat. This is a great document because it tells you the spacing, how much seed you'll need, as well as the planting dates. And for here in Missouri, we have very varied weather from the north to the south. And also we can be delayed, as Jennifer was talking, by 2 weeks in the northern part of the state versus the southern part of the state. So this calendar comes in really handy because you can look at what zone you're in, the southern, the mid, or the northern, and judge going on the document. You can look at what column and find out the planting dates that are in your area. And so that's all I have. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Donna. A lot of good tips there. It is now time for insect friend or foe, and Tamara is going to do that. And then she's going to briefly tell us about pulling back our leaves and mulch from plants.
Thank you. I apologize. I have dogs that are singing in the background. They just started. We have wind that's going like crazy right now. So we're going to go ahead and start I'm going to launch the poll, but hold on a second. I just lost my screen. Hold on. You can't see what the friend or foe is at this point because it's not there. Hold on a second. Having technical difficulties. I apologize. I cannot bring up my Zoom page. It's not coming. Jennifer, can you go on to the next one and I'll get this all figured out?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about winter annual weeds. And we've been getting a lot of questions in our extension offices about these weeds. People are wanting them identified. They're wanting to know how to control them, what they can use. So I thought I would show you some of the common winter annuals that are growing right now in flower beds, pastures, your yard. And I'm going to start with chickweed. Chickweed is a winter annual. That means that it prefers coming up in really late winter, and it likes cold temperatures. So it likes the cold, the cool temperatures. It may come up in the fall when the temperatures are getting cooler, and then over winter, and really come on strong in late winter, early spring, like right now. And then when it starts getting warm to hot, it dies out. It will turn yellow, it'll turn brown, and it will be done. And we have been receiving some photos from clients, and they want it identified, and it grows in a clump like you see here. Or if they don't have photos, they will say, I have this light green colored weed, and it's growing in a clump in my flower bed. So anyway, it's a very common weed. There's common chickweed and mouse ear chickweed. It does look like it is growing in a clump. That the pictures you see here at the top that's one plant. It produces a white flower, and that white flower will produce seeds. And being an annual, it's only going to live, for one growing season, and that flower is going to produce seed, and those seeds are going to drop into your flower bed or your yard and be there for a new crop come fall when it gets cooler, or next spring. So I am going to talk about control after I show you some more winter annuals. This is dead nettle. Dead nettle is in the mint family. It has a square stem, and it has purple flowers. Notice the leaf shape on this. The leaves are serrated, they are pointed or somewhat pointed, and they droop downward. This one is often confused with henbit, but the way you tell the difference is from the shape of the leaves and the way those leaves are drooping down. And it is a winter annual. It starts coming up in late winter, and it will start fizzling out when it gets really hot. And then here we have henbit. And as you're driving down roads, you may see fields of henbit. Just about a week ago, I saw on Facebook where somebody said, and this was in South Missouri, they said, what a pretty field of clover. And they thought it was a little early for clover. Well, yes, it's a little early for red clover to be in bloom. And what they really saw was a field of henbit. And henbit is different in its leaf shape, or has a different leaf shape than dead nettle. And here at the lower left, you can see the difference between the two plants. Henbit leaves are whorled around that stem. Now, both are in the mint family, both have square stems, but henbit has leaves that are whorled around the stem, and it too has purple flowers, versus the dead nettle, which has more of a pointed leaf, and those hang downward. Henbit can be in a clump like you see in the lower right, and it too, being a winter annual, produces seed. Those seeds will drop into your flower bed or your lawn and be there, and then germinate when the temperature is just right in the fall or the following spring. Now, how do you control these? If it's in your flower bed or your garden, you can apply a pre-emergent in mid-February here in North Missouri. So I applied preen in some of my flower beds where I knew I'd had chickweed and henbit problems. I applied in mid-February. In Southern Missouri, you probably need to apply sooner than that. And I use preen containing trifluralin, which is a synthetic ingredient. They do make vegetable preen or organic preen, which is meant to be used around edible crops, like your plants in your garden that you're planning to eat. But for a flower bed, you can use the preen containing the active ingredient trifluralin. If the plants are already up and growing, preen will not do you any good. Preen kills the seed that is in your lawn or your flower beds. So at that point, preen's not going to do any good. You need to hand pull, hoe the weeds out, or you can use herbicides. You can use Roundup. It is non-selective, meaning it will kill anything it touches. So you have to be very careful using it. I just told someone yesterday that if they're going to use Roundup in a flower bed with existing, desirable plants, they may want to get a large piece of cardboard and put that up against their desirable plant to keep from spraying that plant and only spray the weeds. There's also broadleaf herbicides that can be used on chickweed, dead nettle, and henbit. And Trimec is one of the products that you may find on a garden shelf. Weed Begone is another one, and there are many more. I'm not, exactly telling you which one to use, but there are many out there. And if you're looking for one, most of them contain 2,4-D and other ingredients. But just know the difference between a non-selective herbicide being Roundup versus the broadleaf. Because Roundup's going to kill everything, and the broadleaf herbicides will kill broadleaf plants. So it is safe to use on your lawn. It will not kill lawn grass. It kills broadleaf plants. And if you have any questions about identifying these plants, if you're still not sure, let's say if it's henbit or dead nettle, or if you're not sure, if it really is chickweed, or not sure what chemical to use or exactly how to get rid of it, please reach out to one of us. We'd be glad to look at your photos and help you identify it and recommend a product that would work for you. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And we'll go back to Tamara. Tamara, are you ready now for insect friend or foe?
I am. So when it rains, it pours. I had everything happen at the same time. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, I can.
Good. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll now. So take a look at what is on the screen and let us know whether this is a friend or foe or neither, or it depends. I'll give you just a little bit of time.
So my screen is your poll answer. It's not it won't let me touch anything.
Oh
It won't let
boy,
me vote. It won't let me vote.
that makes sense because nobody is voting. So let me go ahead and stop that again, and I will try to launch it again. Are you guys able to see what is on the screen? My presentation?
Yes.
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 I really.
Oh, it went away. Boy, I am just having all sorts of technical difficulties today. I apologize. Normally things go fairly well, but okay. So, oh, this is what's going on. Okay. I might need somebody else to try and launch this poll because it is not launching for me.
I think the question was already launched, and so now, oh, there it goes.
Okay.
There's
All right. Teamwork. Thank you all. All right. So we have answers coming in. Guys are doing a good job. All right. So just another second or two, and then I'm going to close the poll. All right. Here we go. And I will share the results. So it looks like most of you said it's a foe. And let's find out. So this is a little bit of a trick question, just a little bit. And what the reason is because this actually isn't an insect. So it's an arthropod, so it's kind of related, but I actually get a lot of questions about things like that because it's a lot of people just say bug, but it's an arthropod. Count the legs. There are 8. Insects only have 6. So anyway, so this is not an insect. It's an arthropod, and I would say it is a foe in a pretty big way. This is a tick. It's a female Lone Star tick, to be specific. And ticks are really important vectors of disease in domestic and wild animals throughout the world. They're actually only second to mosquitoes as transmitters of human disease. So they're a really important medical insect. There we go. Arthropod. They can harbor and transmit various pathogens. There are protozoa and virus and bacteria that they can vector to humans and our companion animals like our pets. And that can cause a lot of problems. So I want to give you just a little bit more information about ticks to protect you from them. So here are some examples of some ticks. This is taken from the CDC website. And you can see on here that There are quite a few different ticks. This is not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. There's quite a few, but these are three of the more important ones. And you can see that there's some differences in male and female, and also as they develop from nymphs all the way through adult. As nymphs, you can see some of them actually will only have 6 legs, and as they become an adult, then they have 8 legs. So another interesting fact about them, total time for development from egg to adult, it actually can take as long as 24 years for hard ticks and 10 years for soft ticks. So also contrary to popular belief, ticks do not jump onto you. They do not fall from trees. Thankfully, they don't have wings, so they can't fly. They always crawl or they get a ride, and they ride by what's called questing. So this tick, it latches onto a leaf head down, and it just spreads its legs, and it's waiting for someone or something to come by, and it'll latch onto them, and then it will try to find a place where it can get a blood meal. So this is also taken from the CDC. It's a track bite tracker. You can see where the most prevalent areas of ticks are. Over here in the Midwest area, you can see that we're second highest in the country, and that's real-time data. So that was from, I took this from today, and this is taken. It's updated quite often. This was last updated 2 days ago. So you can see that ticks are already active, and so we need to be aware of them. Here is a outlook for the entire year. You can see that ticks are already active again. They start being active when it's over about 40 degrees or over 50 degrees, somewhere in there. And so you need to be aware of them, specifically through April through October and November. Just a couple quick tips. If you know where to avoid them, that's going to help you to be careful. Expect them if you're outside. Treat your clothing and gear with permethrin, that can help, or you can use DEET containing insect repellent. There are a few others that can also help. Oil of lemon eucalyptus is another option. And after you come indoors from being outdoors, you need to check on your clothing and on your body. Also check your pets, because they can get the ticks, and then also those ticks can come off the pets and get onto you. So if you do find a tick on yourself, you will want to remove it. Hopefully it has not embedded itself in you. If it hasn't, then definitely just take it off. If it has embedded itself into you, this is the way that you do it. You use tweezers, and you get as close as you can to the head, and then you lift it up with constant pressure, just upwards. Do not twist, do not jerk. You don't want the head or the mouth parts to stay inside. And you want to do this just kind of gently but firmly, so that you can get the tick out. And the reason you're grabbing down here instead of up here is you don't want to be pushing any of the fluids from the tick into your body. After you pull it out, you're going to want to clean that area thoroughly, wash your hands, wash the tick bite area, maybe put some antibiotic on there. You might consider saving the tick, put it into a bag and put it in the freezer or in alcohol, just in case there are problems later on, and that you'll be able to have the sample to share with your doctor. So that's what I have for insect or arthropod, friend or foe. We also received a question about protecting pollinators. And so I'm just going to jump into that really fast, because we actually, we covered this last week. It's a question that we get fairly frequently. What do you do with your leaves now? Perhaps you're one of the people that are being an insect protector, and you left your leaves. When do you actually pull those back? Well, we've had gorgeous weather, and it seems like maybe we would pull it back before, but you can see with the cold weather, maybe we need to leave it on there just a little bit longer. I say that it's a good idea to leave it on when it's consistently 40 or 50 degrees, definitely safe by Memorial Day. And I'm going to drop this link into the chat so that you can go watch the video for more information. Jennifer, that's what I have for today.
Okay, thank you, Tamara. We're now going to turn to Pong, and he's going to talk to us about invasive pest in Missouri.
Hi, everyone. Today, I would like to give you a few updates of invasive plant pests in Missouri. First, I would like to thank my colleague, Dr. Hank Stelter, as well as Ms. Robbie Doho from Missouri Department of Conservation. Let's first start with the southern canker disease, also called TCD disease. This disease is caused by a walnut twig beetle and a fungal pathogen called Geosmithia morbida. It normally shows symptoms of those small lesions on the trunk and then further develop into the large lesions on the trunk, causing the whole trunk death. This is how the twig beetle look like, and this is how the Geosmithia species growing on the plates. The Missouri Department of Agriculture and Department of Conservation, they have been screening for the Geosmithia morbida in 2019. So far, there are multiple counties which are shown here in this map showing positive for this fungi. However, since the beetle, the twig beetle has not been detected in Missouri, we still consider the TCD has not been introduced into Missouri as a state. For the symptoms, it normally showed up in the middle of summer, causing yellowing and wilting of foliar, high in the crown. Then the symptom will going down from the top and to the bottom. It showed dieback symptoms. You may confuse it with the late summer walnut anthracnose. So if you have any question about the black walnut dieback issue, give us a call or contact the local agents of the Missouri Department of Conservation. Another fungal pathogen causes elm tree disease called a Dutch elm disease. This is a vascular fungal pathogen, and you can see that it can cause the stem streaking as well as the discoloration inside of the vascular system. It is also transmitted by an insect called smaller European elm bark beetle, but it can cause the gallery under the bark, shown here. To manage this disease, promote tree health and water during the droughts. You can do the preventive trunk injections and plant the Dutch elm resistant variety or tolerant cultivars. And one thing to make sure is do not plant in the road. That will help you to avoid the transmission of the disease. The emerald ash borer, the EAB disease, maybe some of you guys have heard about this disease. It was considered as invasive disease to Missouri, but when you look at this map, this is the data collected from August 2021. The majority of the counties have been reported to have the EAB diseases. And I don't want to call that invasive anymore. It already become the native insect for Missouri. So for the symptom, it can cause thinning canopy, an apicormic branching, and suckering fruits from the roots. And it also attracts a lot of woodpecker, causing the woodpecker feed inside the flickering symptoms on the bark. For the signs, you can see the exit holes for the insect are D-shaped. It can also cause serpentine galleries under the bark. And if you look at the larvae, it normally has the bell-shaped segments. And over time, it will cause the bark splits. The most recent data suggests that ash is no longer carry any ecological or economical benefits, since their dining and the number of the ash tree here in Missouri is declining drastically due to EAB disease. For controlling this disease, please keep that in mind that EAB infested ash tree are very dangerous because it will because of this disease, the wood strength will quickly reduced, and it will cause the major limb to fail close to the trunk. So do not climb on the ash tree that have been confirmed positive for EAB disease. Now let's switch gear and talk about another beautiful insect called spotted lanternfly. So when you look at this photo, you can see such a beautiful color, and those spots are lined up in such a uniform way. and the beautiful consistent shapes from the two sides. However, if you look at those insects in this scope, you will definitely feel gross. So this is a spotted lanternfly. They live on they normally attach to the bark of the plant, sucking the plant juice and cause a lot of damages to the plant. And here are the photos for the adult stage, the nymph stage, and also those are the egg mass that attach to the bark. They actually can attach to anything such as the humans, vehicles, equipment. So that make the controlling this disease very difficult. Here are more photos of how they attach to the plants and sucking those plant juice. And over time, it will cause it will attract the other insects, and those insects will form slime mold, causing blackening of the stem. Oops. So for potential distribution map, you can see that Missouri was definitely in the hot zone. So this insect will show up anytime from now. Based on the current distribution of the most recent data, you can see that the spotted lanternfly are primarily on the East Coast, and there are very few cases in Ohio, Indiana. And when you think that's this insect is still far away from us, then there is a report from the September 2021 saying that a Kansas student just showed their his insect collection during the state fair, and one of them were confirmed as a spotted lanternfly, which initiated the federal investigation. So we don't know when did this insect showed up and how long have they been there. So that's why they may be very close to us. Asian longhorn beetle. This beetle is another invasive beetle that has not been detected in Missouri. Currently, they are infecting several places in the East Coast, and you can see the numbers, the infestation, and the tree loss, and definitely demonstrated the severity of this insect. The reason we call this disease severe, not because how much damage it causes, it's actually because of the broad host range that this insect can infect. And it can cause its preferred hosts include maple, buckeye, willow, and elm, and it has another set of the good hosts. And remember, their hosts, the host tree may not be limited to this list, and the list may increase over time. For another fungal pathogen, Referella, this disease, fungal disease, can cause laurel wilts. Currently, in Missouri, it is reported to cause the dieback for sassafras. So if you see any sassafras dying, please report, and please do not move them for firewood. If you look at distribution map, you can see the laurel wilt is primarily an issue for the southeast area of the United States. But there's two counties in Tennessee that are close to Missouri that have been shown positive for this disease. Luckily, this area does not have a lot of woody area, so that reduced the chance of this disease to be transmitted to Missouri. Now let's move to the ornamental. The boxwood dieback caused by Colletotrichum cerebromicola. This disease, the prime host is boxwood, and first reported in 2015 in Louisiana. So far, there are several research groups are doing research on how to identify, how to diagnose, and how to control this disease. It will cause a random dieback of twigs, and also can form those black acivuli on the top of the lesion. It will cause immediate dark lesion underneath the bark. Over time, it will cause defoliation and also whole plant death. So this disease is fungal caused by fungal pathogens. So the fungal spore can be transmitted by the pruning practices and rain splash and irrigation. To manage this disease, The fungicide are currently very limited to control that. So you have to follow good cultural practices and avoid plant injuries and create an unfavorable environment for this disease. Have a good sanitation by doing surface disinfection for those pruning and cutting tools, and remove and destroy all the disease plant immediately in landscape. Now let's look at the oak tree. Recently, there's a newer disease called burr oak blight have been intensified by above average spring rainfall since 1990s. If you look at the scientific name Tobacco iowensis, you can see there's an Iowa inside its name, indicating the location and distribution of the disease. Yes, so this disease was reported primarily in the border area in those counties close to Iowa and also Nebraska. That's from 2020's data. For the symptom, it normally causes those tip burning and also the streaking on following the vein, like showing here. And more symptom can be shown here. You can see it can cause defoliation, but while the patio is still attached to the main stem. So we have already covered several different pests of invasive pests, invasive plant pathogen, and invasive insect. So the take-home message for this talk is always be on the lookout because a new pest can arrive at any time, and make sure to identify the trees and watch out for the issues. If you see any abnormal tree damages, tree diseases, or unusual insects, report to us. The Missouri Department of Agriculture, Department of Conservation, and MU Plant Diagnostic Clinic are the places you can go to, and you can visit us, or you can give a contact. So let's all collaborate and work together to defend the state of Missouri from the attacks of those invasive pests. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Pong. That wraps it up for today. And so I'm going to turn it back to Debbie now.
Yeah, we have such great information that we always like to present every week. And so I just want to thank my colleagues for that. We have a lot more information that we didn't get to, and so we'll make sure that we push that along to next week. So be sure to come back. Just so you know, once again, we're starting on a weekly basis. So mark your calendars from noon to 1 so you can join us live via Zoom. Or if you want, you can join us live via YouTube. So either way is perfectly fine. If you have a question you would like for us to answer for you, go back to where you registered to get the email reminders at ipm.missouri.edu/town halls, and then click on Garden Hour and go ahead and sign up again. You'll only get one email reminder, but every time you've got a question, you need to go back to that location, type in your question. That question will come into us, and we're happy to answer that live on the screen for you at any time. But if you have something you want answered right away, just feel free to go ahead and email any one of us. I'll leave this up in case you want to jot down one of our names, and we'll be happy to answer that for you. In the meantime, have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday at noon, and watch those temperatures the latter part of this week, especially Saturday morning when Pat said we were going to have some pretty low temperatures. Thanks for joining us. Bye.